Okay, hello everyone, Nubkeks here. We're going to be doing a Heroes to Storm video today. Hooray, how exciting, yay. This was on Reddit. I thought it's an interesting post, which has asked the question that he doesn't think solo carrying is something we should focus on learning or teaching. And he's saying a lot of popular videos and guides are about how to solo carry games and playing effectively as a solo player. So I thought this would be an interesting post to go through and talk about examples of what you can do in terms of good teamwork, which I definitely think is a very interesting topic and very obviously important to Heroes the Storm as well. So, well, let's dive on into it. First of all, let's talk about drafting. All right, and he's got a bunch of points here. Look at your teammates' roster and win rates. Encourage them to pick what they're good at by telling them their win rate's impressive. So, I mean, I wouldn't be telling people that their win rate is impressive. That's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit much. But I certainly think it's a good idea for sure to look at what your teammates play. I think that is quite important. Especially also to look at the amount of games they've played in particular roles, right? So let's say, I mean, speaking for myself, because I can play any role, so I have some flexibility in the draft, and I can, for example, look at my team and go, okay, cool, we've got a main tank player, cool, and he's got tank as his main role, great. And then we've got 3 ranged assassin players, and I might take a look at them and go, okay, well, this guy only plays ranged assassin, this guy only plays ranged assassin. Well, this guy, he plays some melee assassin, some bruiser, and some ranged. None of them play healer. Okay, well, I'll try play healer because we don't want the healer to be someone that never plays the role. It's better to have people play stuff that they're good at and comfortable at. So I think that's definitely a good tip to help round out your roster. I think it is a good idea. I think it's a very bad idea to tell people specific heroes to play. That's one of the biggest noob mistakes you see in drafting, is someone will just fixate on a hero that they think fits the draft well, or they think is really good in the meta. So they'll be like, you must pick Garrosh. If you don't pick Garrosh, we're going to lose. Or you must pick Hanzo. If you don't pick Hanzo, we're going to lose. And then ultimately these players, they're bad players. They're ultimately oftentimes telling their teammates to pick, forcing a teammate to pick Garrosh when that teammate actually sucks at Garrosh. But hey, maybe he's actually quite comfortable on Muradin or something and could have just played that instead, So yeah, I would say never tell people specific heroes to pick. Encourage them to play stuff that they are good at. And I think make suggestions, but don't give ultimatums. That's my advice on that one. Avoid picking wombo combos in lower leagues, but draft it if you're communicating well from the start. So I don't really agree on this one. I don't know. Obviously, I don't have much experience in the lower leagues, but I don't see how wombo combos would be particularly worse than any other strategy. I mean, I would consider that in the lower leagues, basically any strategy you do is going to be done badly. So it doesn't really matter. But one thing I would say, in fact, I would actually be leaning more towards wombo combos being pretty good. I think generally speaking in Storm League, it's probably a good idea to draft relatively simple compositions. Like I one of the biggest mistakes I see is if people draft a composition that requires finesse. So something like actually playing around cooldowns properly. And, perhaps like you've got a composition where, okay, you want to like wait out, I don't know, Anubarak Cocoons or Alexstrasza Dragon Queens. Okay, we want to kind of kite backwards for like 10 seconds, or we can go in once Muradin uses his Storm Bolt. Okay, then we can punish a little bit, and then we want to go in with our cooldowns after that, or we want to sort of poke with our first cycle of CDs. And then when we get our second cycle of CDs, we want to be actually looking for a kill, that sort of stuff. Any actual brain power that's required, I think that's a bad idea. That's just not a good idea at all. I would say a wombo combo is actually pretty fine. That's just, if you can draft a team, team compositions of heroes that are we just run at the enemy team, we all press our buttons and we just blow them up. That's really good. That's really good. So honestly, like a wombo combo, I think is a straightforward thing. Just bam, hit them all with our heroics, all of our burst damage, and explode them. I think that's actually fine. That seems like a good thing. It's simple, it's intuitive to understand how to play it, and it's relatively easy actually to execute. All right, next point. Draft follow-up and really have in mind what tank you have. Follow the tank's lead. Yeah, I think that's definitely important for sure as well, especially if you're playing a damage dealer, really. That's what you're looking for. You definitely want to consider what tank you have and what tank they have. I mean, you consider everything, but the tank is probably the most important thing to consider. So, I mean, let's say your team has a garage. It's probably quite valuable then to, I don't know, grab something like Kael'thas, because Kael'thas has a range stun. So that's very easy to follow up. And Kael'thas has decent burst damage. So if Garrosh throws someone out of position, it's quite easy for you to be, go, oh, okay, cool. Well, I know Garrosh is going to try to do that. I'll pick Kael'thas. I can follow up on his Garrosh's combo with my stun, my burst combo, and that's good kill pressure. Or, you could take something like Greymane and be like, all right, cool. Well, we've got, I don't know, maybe we've got like a Malfurion and a Blaze solo lane or something. So we got lots of CC and lockdown. So I'll pick a Greymane, which I know has good single target burst damage. So when we throw them out of position, we have enough follow-up already. I can go with just really big single target blow-up damage. Stuff like that is a pretty good idea, I think. So yeah, considering the tank you have and how you can work with them. Or, likewise, let's say, I don't know, let's say Zul'jin or something. I'm going to feel good if I've got like a Johanna in front of me, a good peeling tank, a good zone control tank. So I'm going to have good, that puts out a lot of, really locks down the enemy team in bulk for quite a while and slows them down. I'm going to get lots of axes out. Whereas if I had, I don't know, a main tank Tyrael, I'm going to feel pretty bad because they're just going to walk past and I'm going to have to run away and not get uptime on basic attacks. It's going to be awkward, that sort of thing. All right, stay positive. No matter what, any draft can win. I mean, sure. I think obviously trying to stay positive is a good idea. I think it's really personal, right? So it depends. Like, I don't know. It's like, just be positive. Why aren't you just happy? I don't know if that's something that you can actually do. I guess you should try. Any draft can win. I mean, you could win the lotto, but I don't think that means you should expect to or work around the expectation that it is going to happen, but whatever. Macro. Learn macro strategies, but don't freak out if it isn't going as planned. Stay calm and keep working towards it. I mean, it depends on what rank you're at, right? For sure. Like, again, obviously, if I was in like a lower or a mid rank, you're obviously expecting that, it's not going to go as planned. I think expecting, if you're in platinum and you're expecting the strategy to be executed perfectly, give me some of those drugs you're smoking because they sound really potent. Stay calm and keep working towards it. I mean, like, for example, if your strategy is like, okay, we want to like clear mid wave, bot wave, mid wave, then go like Spears and Paler camp after those waves, like on Infernal Shrines or something, and you can't exactly keep working towards it. Like if your plan is to get to the camp and take it on camp spawn, well, if you miss taking it on camp spawn, you can't really keep working towards it. Like that goal has been and gone. I guess he's talking about more general game plan stuff. It seems pretty vague to me. But yeah, I mean, the most important thing I would say here is that, again, I would expect that stuff isn't particularly going to work well at most levels of play. So you should expect mistakes. And yeah, I mean, if you're playing with GMs and stuff is messing up, and I'd probably start getting pretty pissed. But, if you're playing in silver and stuff is crazy shit is happening constantly, it's like literally that's what you should expect. So yeah, don't worry about it. Pinging camps sometimes works. Other times you might have to tell players in advance when to time camps and why. Short messages can help a lot. I actually 100% agree with this. I think this is probably the best advice so far, actually. I think using pings is extremely important. So like pinging a camp, I think the going ping, so like hold down Alt, click, and go to the right. So pinging where you're going, that's extremely important for soaking lanes, going to team fights, going to camps, going to everything. You should use that ping all the time. Use the down ping, the help ping. It's really important if you need help on a camp. And I think typing, again, I think short message, that's key. That's what good communication is about. So for example, good communication might be, let's say you're on Cursed Hollow and you want to take the Bruiser camp. Okay, well, that's pretty challenging. Let's say you're playing Greymane, and you've got Malfurion on your team. So, like just ping going to Bruiser camp, and then maybe you could ping help as well, and then type in chat, say, Malf, can you help me can you help take camp? ? Cool. All right. And then if Malf doesn't come, just live with it, I suppose, and move on. Again, it depends on your rank. You get more pissed off proportionate to how high your rank is if the Malf doesn't help you. But yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. Good communication, I think, is just clear and factual. Or, for example, you could ping, let's say it's an enemy camp and you want to invade. So it's like, let's say it's the end of the game, it's level 20, whatever, and the enemy team, you know that the enemy team is going for their boss, and if they take the boss, they're going to win the game. You could like, ping danger on the boss, and then type to your chat, they win if they take boss, let's go. And then like start making your way over, and then hope that your team follows you. Again, just clear factual information. That's what you want to be communicating. Oh, here we go. Invading. Invade camps and bosses only if your team is with you. Ping. Tell in advance. Invade after we take ours. Yeah, sure. Again, I think that's a good idea. Obviously, yeah, you always want to ping if you're going to invade something like that. Again, like communication. This is actually, again, this is really important. I think that sending like messages to explain, again, the importance of this is, and the importance of the pings. Again, the necessity to communicate more. Again, it's bigger the lower rank you are, right? So, and telling people in advance. So, like, if you're playing with, I don't know, if you're playing with like GMs or whatever, or like, you're not going to need to explain why you want to do things, right? You really don't need to communicate much at all. Everybody knows what they're doing. If you're playing in gold, I probably would be definitely pinging that stuff, and I'd be explaining it as well, again in a short message, just factual. I'm like, this is like, let's do this is why. Yeah, soaking is great. Don't soak if your team is losing fights and are getting tilted. It's better to have everyone executing a bad plan because the chances are much higher than it will succeed. Cool. That's one of the generic piece of advice that people always love throwing out. It's one of those vague things that doesn't really have much to back it up. But yeah, obviously, I think, okay, so soaking, I think, is extremely important, and it's always undervalued. I think, generally speaking, people have no idea just how important soaking is. That being said, again, this is particularly true of like lower rank stuff. So I mean, I did some videos like when I was playing on my NA account and stuff, like I made an NA account, or what my account is obviously on NA, but it was like level 1. So I played some games over on that and stuff like that. Or I played a couple of games, I think recently-ish on the channel, maybe on a Smurf account, trying to get that ready to actually be able to duo queue in Storm League on streams, because you can't really duo queue very easily when you're above Master anymore. Yeah, you'll see in some of those games, like, you kind of leave the good gameplay of like soaking. You kind of leave that aside. This actually, ironically, this ties back to the solo carrying idea, which is that, yeah, like soaking is obviously really important, but you can't just like, even if doing random team fights in the middle of the map is, bad strategic play, it can be really good, especially if you're confident that you can solo carry. Like, if you're good at actual micro, we're going to look at that, I suppose, and controlling your character, and you know that you can out team fight and you can outplay players, then taking random fights and stuff like that and just joining team fights and forgetting about soak in lower ranks especially can be really valuable. Because this will happen, like, even if it is the correct play, like if you were playing with, again, at a very high level, right, the correct play would obviously be, you're going to want to soak lanes, and it's extremely important to play around lane soak, camp timings, all of that. If you try to do that in like your silver game, this is probably what's going to happen. Your teammates are probably going to try fight 4v5. They're going to lose the fight, and then they're going to rage because they're bad and they don't understand what's going on. So they just revert to anger. So you probably want to avoid that, and it's going to be more valuable to just team fight and just outplay people in the team fight and try to win. So ironically, I think that's actually where solo carrying becomes quite important. So that's definitely something to be aware of. Communicate when you're soaking. Don't just sit there in lane. Be present with pings and messages. Getting 10 care, for example. They will more likely get tilted at you for not being there if you don't communicate. 100% agree. I think, again, that ties into exactly what I was saying earlier. That's super important. I think that's really important. Yeah. Oftentimes with objectives, you're going to be playing around like level 7, level 10 in the mid game, 13, 16, even 20. Playing down a talent tier is often quite dangerous. So if you are close to a talent tier, it can be worthwhile to soak. If you're not going to be at an objective fight, I think you really want to ping. Like, I'm going top lane, ping the going top lane. And then again, I would, if I was playing in a lower rank, I would absolutely open team chat and tell them, like, soaking top. And then once you're done soaking top, again, ping going to the objective, because they can see on the minimap, they can see like an arrow from your character to where you're going, so they can have an idea how long it's going to take. That stuff I think is really important. I would never go and like soak stuff during an objective, or decide to split push instead of an objective or something and not communicate that. I think that's a really bad idea. Again, like pings are your friend. So, like the going ping is literally your best friend. So definitely get used to using them. And yeah, there you go. All right, micro, cool. Follow up on your tank's CC. Save your abilities for the right moment. Sure. I think that's actually really advanced. Yeah, that's again, like that's super, like that's kind of like useless advice in the sense that it's super vague. Save your abilities for the right moment. What is the right moment? Which ability should I save? Which should I not? You know, that's so vague. It's actually not particularly helpful, right? I think that's why I say it's super advanced. I also think it's not really about this, right? I think at the end of the day, good play is being aware of the ability cooldowns and what the abilities do, of course. But be aware of everything that every hero in the game can do. All 10 heroes. You need to be aware of everything they can do and all of their positioning. And you also want to be aware of the map state as well. You want to be aware of everything and plan everything around that. Like, you're not... I mean, your tank CC is nice, but you don't necessarily always want to follow up on the tank CC at all. You also have to consider, again, the CC of everybody else. Even just damage output can matter as well. All that sort of stuff. So that's extremely broad topic. I'm not even going to bother explaining it now because there's too much in there. But yeah, I think that's super advanced, and it's not really something I'd worry about now. There's too much in that. Don't engage in front of your tank as a ranged assassin. If you're not sure you'll get a kill and can get away. Again, I don't think that's right either. I think that's wrong. Again, this ties into... This is much more advanced as well. It really, again, you're playing around all of your enemy team's abilities. Let me think. Like, okay, so let's say, okay, you might engage just for poke. Like, it really depends. Like, okay, let's say I mean, you could, if I'm a Li Ming, for example, I could easily be in front of my tank, and I could easily be poking the enemy team, so long as I'm considering what their cooldowns are and what they can actually engage and have pressure on me are. Like, as a Li Ming with teleport and with the range in her spells, I can easily be quite far forwards and be harassing them with poke and stuff during an objective and be just fine. I mean, let's say I'm playing Vala. I'm against, like, okay, a Stitches is very easy to play around. Say like a Stitches, a Malfurion, and let's make it hard, a Kael'thas. So let's say we're in Tomb of the Spider Queen, and I'm in mid lane, and I'm playing against the three of them, and I'm Vala against them as three. I could actually technically get some harass off of them, so actually be relatively far forward and shooting them with basic attacks. It's obviously quite risky, so you'd want to, you know, consider the map state, and you obviously want to be very aware of potential rotations from other sides, because I mean, if you got flanked by another hero, you'd just die almost definitely. So that's probably a bad idea. But if you're aware of where people are, you could totally play around that, and you could actually be getting quite a lot of harass there in a 1v3 situation as a ranged assassin, right? Because like with Stitches doesn't really do anything except for his hook, and as Vala, you've got movement speed baseline from your trait, right? So you could easily be just plinking away at him and slowly wearing down his health, neutralizing some of the healing from regen globes and the Malf rejuves or regrowths. You just want to be aware of his hook. But again, I would say as a Vala, I'd be quite confident of dodging the hook, because Vala is small and she's very fast, and you've got Vault as well. So dodging hook, you can play around that. Same thing with the Malfurion. You could potentially trade with some value into Malfurion. You could certainly wear down his mana. You'd want to consider, again, the state of your healer's mana, etc., and the map state and the regen globes. But you could, again, trade into him relatively okay. You just want to be aware of, like, entangling roots, because, again, it's something you can play around. It's got a range on it. If you're within the range where you can actually just hit you with the center of the root, that's really bad. You wouldn't want to do that. But so long as you're on, like, the outside edge of the root, because it has to expand outwards, you could totally, like, be blasting away at him just fine. And, like, the Kael'thas, same thing. Much like the Kael'thas hook, he has a range stun. So that's why I'm saying this is difficult, because you have to play around that as well. So you'd be playing around a hook and a stun, and then just being aware of range to Malfurion. Like, the further away you are from the Kael'thas, it gets quite easy to dodge his stun as the Vala with the move speed and Vault. And then you basically, like in that situation, you probably could get quite a lot of harass on them. You just, I think the safe thing to do would be assume that Stitches has hook, assume that Malf has root, and assume that Kael'thas has his stun. We wouldn't even particularly bother tracking those cooldowns, and then you'd probably just be mostly focused on the cooldown of Kael'thas living bomb, because he can just walk up and plop the bomb on you, and that's like a really good value instant trade. So you'd want to be making sure that it's worth the risk, and you'd be basically paying attention to like, okay, where are the other heroes on the map? Can they rotate in? Okay, play around the living bomb and watch my positioning towards those other heroes, and then just be confident that I can actually dodge their CC. And in that situation, you could actually get lots of harass off. Like I said, that's kind of advanced, and obviously you'd want to make sure that getting the harass is actually going to get value and be worth the risk. But that's just an example. Okay, cool. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. Don't cage in front of your tank's a range assassin. You're not sure you get a kill and can get away. I mean, I don't really see how you'd be very often engaging as a range assassin and securing a kill and getting away in front of your tank before anyone particularly responds. But obviously, as any damage dealer, you want to be very aware of the enemy team and their abilities and the value they're going to get. So yeah, you obviously just don't overextend, sure. A tank shouldn't be further away than half a screen from your team in team fights. Muradins sure like to go deep sometimes. Again, I think this is also bad advice. Like, oftentimes the correct thing for Muradin to do will be to go deep. Like, that's literally how the hero works. Muradin has an immense amount of mobility. He's incredibly strong in a 1v1 or 1v2 even, because he's got so much health and he's got a lot of CC, and he does a fuck ton of damage with give him the axe at level 7. So, like, for example, a Muradin could easily go really deep in a fight and get good value trading by just diving their backline, and it's effectively tanking. It's the point of the tank isn't necessarily to be at the front of your team at all. Like Muradin as a tank can function quite well, like diving. Like, okay, let's say again, let's stick with the same composition before. Let's say they have a Stitches, a Kael'thas, and a Malfurion, and then 2 other heroes, and you've got some other heroes. We won't go that deep into it, but like Muradin could absolutely dive a Malf and a Kael'thas and get really good value. You put a lot of threat on them. Kael'thas gets value out of doing AoE damage primarily, so if Muradin's able to, Muradin's not going to die to Kael'thas burst ever. So Muradin could get quite a lot of harass on Kael'thas, quite a lot of pressure on him, and you might force like entangling roots. You might force any of Kael'thas's AoE abilities to be used on you either, which is really good value. And if you're able to like 1v2 them successfully, even to get a good value 1v2 trade for like 5, 6, 7 seconds, that could be enough to win a team fight, right? So I don't actually think that's good advice. It really depends on your tank. I mean, like if you're a Garrosh, obviously you're not going to dive the enemy team very much. You might dive a little bit to put pressure with his, is it Decimate? I don't know, his Q ability. It's like the cone smash with the knockup. Like you might go far enough forwards potentially in some situations to like threaten their backline with that and zone them off a little bit. But like as Garrosh, you're not particularly going to be diving very far. Or you'll dive to follow up if you do hit that Q to attempt to throw them back, that sort of thing. But, whereas Muradin will dive quite a lot. It depends on the hero. So I actually disagree with that. It really depends. Like Muradin's like to go deep because that's how the hero plays. Listen to your tank pings. If he wants to retreat, you really should. I guess so. I think you should just listen to, in an imperfect world, everybody would be smart enough to communicate well and accurately. I'd say you should listen to pretty much everybody's pings. Like if your ranged damage dealer is pinging retreat, you're going to be like, okay, that damage dealer, you're probably going to want to back off. Like if your Zul'jin, let's say your Kael'thas is pinging retreat or something, because you know that Kael'thas, he's just fucked off, right? So now you're trying to fight when you've got one damage dealer that shouldn't be running away, who is. So you're probably going to lose. So you want to back off. I don't know. I think you just need to be aware of anybody pinging retreat and start to be very careful. Especially at lower ranks where people are just going to run away when they shouldn't. A tank should ping their targets. Spam ping, mash that button as much as you can. Okay, this is, without question, the worst advice in this. This is actually advice that is actively damaging you. This is really bad. Couldn't disagree more. Spam pinging is always bad. Always bad. If you spam pings, you are a bad player. Do not mash the button as much as you can. Number one, it's very distracting, very overwhelming. And number two, you're also literally preventing yourself from being able to do other pings. It's like, okay, if you spam ping, I don't know, you spam ping like their Kael'thas 5 times in a row, and then you want to actually ping retreat, or you want to ping like danger because a Dahaka starts flanking or something. Well, you actually can't because you've locked yourself out from pinging too much. So that's just stupid. In terms of pings, you should ping once, ping twice if it's urgent, maybe 3 times if it's extremely urgent, and that's it. You should never need more than 2 pings, really, 2 or 3. So like, 1 ping for going, you can ping once or twice. Like, if somebody, if their Malfurion walks out of position, you can maybe like ping it twice. Cool, go Malf, urgency. 2 pings conveys urgency. That's all you need. Spamming pings is always bad. You're just a bad communicator, a bad player. You need to improve. Sorry. Tanks should ping their targets. Again, I also disagree with that as well. It's just not particularly relevant. I think your team should ping the target. Like, you're pinging the target for the team, not for the tank. Again, it's the same idea of I think there's a big misconception about tanking here. The person that the tank is targeting is not always the target that the team should be going for. It really depends. Yeah, that's just not the case. Like, again, for example, as Murden, I could be diving that Kael'thas and Malfurion at the back to zone them out, knowing that if I'm in a 1v2 and I'm getting a good value trade, then my teammates are in a 4v3, so they should be winning that one. I don't even need to know what they're doing. I can just assume, again, in most cases, I could just assume that 4v3, they're going to win the fight. And if I'm winning a 1v2, then it's a win-win situation. I certainly don't need to ping what I'm doing or anything like that. That's just the way it is, right? So yeah, that's just something to be aware of. I think a tank should ping when they're going to engage. I think that's quite valuable. So if you're going to go in, I think, pinging that you're going to start a fight is pretty good. And just 1 ping is enough. I mean, like, for example, a good time to ping a couple of times. Let's say I'm a Hanzo and I fire, like, I see a good opportunity and I fire my stun arrow, my ultimate. What's it called? Across the map? Forget what it's called. But, like, if I fire that across the map, I should think and be aware that, my team probably needs to react pretty fast to this to capitalize on this opportunity that I've spotted and this arrow coming across. So they need to react quickly. But because it's across the map, my team might not actually be aware of that. It's reasonable to expect they're probably focusing on the positioning of that particular fight and thinking about objectives and stuff. They might not be aware of this. So I'll probably ping like 2 or 3 times that I'm going in. At least twice, or like going, as the Hanzo. So urgency, Hanzo's going in. They'll go, wait, why is Hanzo going in? Look at the minimap. He's over here. Oh, here's the Hanzo arrow coming. Okay, we'll turn around and we'll dive and we'll go. And we'll be actually like engaged as that arrow hits and we'll get value. That's something to really consider. So there you go. Please don't mash. It's so bad. It's so bad. Help your solo laner with ganks. Yeah, definitely. Let them know your plan. Wait for the right moment to go in. 100%. Yeah. I think when you guys lose map control, I think pinging like danger on a solo laner is a good idea. Like ping danger in the fog of war, especially if they're in a difficult solo lane. I think that's something that can be valuable to do sometimes. It's very important for again, bad players. All like classic bad player is a solo laner that has 0 awareness of the rest of the map, keeps getting ganked, and then starts blaming their team. Why didn't you ping? It's the solo laner's responsibility to be aware of where the enemy team is. But I think certainly you can help your solo laner, especially if like if you guys lose a fight that you really shouldn't lose. I think it's very valuable then to ping danger in the fog of war if you've lost map control, because obviously, if you've lost a fight you shouldn't lose, the solo laner will be like, a good solo laner would have an understanding of how the 2 teams, the 4-mans, are going to interact. And if he's assuming that you guys are going to have a particular level of control and you've lost that through a mistake, signaling that to that solo laner, like, actually you have to change your expectations because we fucked up. That's very valuable. But when you are doing ganks is obviously, it depends on the solo laner. It's obviously important. So for example, like I think Zagara obviously got changed in a recent patch, but historically, like, Zagara lanes were very punishing but very vulnerable to ganks, and it's like, to beat a Zagara in a solo lane, most solo laners needed a gank, and she would often overextend and be very gankable. So helping with ganks in that situation was very worthwhile. It depends on the solo lanes to a large degree, but ganking can be valuable. Obviously there's opportunity cost of ganking. That's why you don't always necessarily want to do it, but certainly pinging to let your solo laner know that you're coming can be quite nice, because they might not necessarily notice straight away. So letting them know, being like, ping on the way, That's cool. You can let them set up. In fact, if you ping even before you leave your lane, so when you're about to leave to go up, that can be super valuable, because a good solo laner can again set up the lane. He could let it push in slightly, try to bait in that other person, make plays. So that's really good. Flank, surprise the enemies, but make sure your team knows what you're about to do. Ping to where you're going so they can follow up. Yeah, definitely. Again, like if you're going to flank and engage with the flank, that's obviously very valuable to let people coordinate and know when you're going to go in. So that's really important. Again, actually, I haven't really talked about globals here, but globals are really important. So again, like if you're playing a hero with global, like it's a Haka or a Brightwing or a Falstad or something, pinging the cooldown on your global is really important. Or if you're just like soaking a lane during an objective, pinging that it's available. Like I could, like as the Haka, I'd be like ping Bushstalker twice in a row available. Be like, guys, I'm watching you. I'm ready to go in with Bushstalker. I'm ready to engage. If you guys pick this fight, I'll be going in, no problem. And when I start activating Bushstalker, I'll probably ping that I'm going as well, right? Just to, again, it's good communication that lets people know what's happening. So yeah, watch your teammates' heroic cooldowns and ping your own. Yeah, that's really important. Again, any important ability, I think that's a good idea. So like even something like a Stitch's hook or Garrosh throw or something, pinging that can be quite valuable if that's something that's important to play around. But pinging your heroics is a good idea, like especially if you've got a short cooldown in your heroics. So like people are often over eager to fight objectives, so you could do something like go, hey, wait a second, 20 seconds on, I don't know, Pyroblast, whatever. Let's wait 20 seconds and then we'll pick the fight. We've got 20 seconds. Cool. And there you go. So that's sort of some feedback and my thoughts on some of that. Again, I think there's some good advice here. And I think there's some bad advice as well. I'm kind of curious what you guys think. Obviously, I think as a general thought, as a general principle, I think that good teamwork and good communication is obviously, it's an extremely important skill in the game. It's super important. It's obviously, at the end of the day, you're still playing with 9 random other players, probably, in a Storm League game. So there's going to be like all sorts of stuff is going to go on. A lot of it's outside of your control. But ultimately, one of the skills you do get tested on, much the same as skill shot accuracy or whatever, is actually, are you a capable communicator or not? Do you have any good leadership skills? Do you have good people skills? And that's obviously not something the game is ever going to tell you. It's not going to be something that's ever represented in the game on the game scoreboard. It's more of a real life skill that has relevance. So yeah, there you go. That's my thoughts on that. It does matter quite a lot, and some tips there. Hopefully it was useful. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye bye.